My name's Myra, and last month my sister tried to transfer our family home into her name, while I was still paying the mortgage. It sounds insane, right? That someone you grew up with, someone who once braided your hair before school picture day, could just do something like that. But that's exactly what happened. I found out on a Wednesday, in the cold, quiet office of a real estate attorney I'd never met before, the kind of office with fake plants and 2 clean carpets and a coffee machine that hadn't been touched in hours. I'd only gone in to ask about refinancing. That was it. A simple question. But the paralegal across the desk had frowned and said, "Wait, this address already has a pending title update." I thought she had the wrong file. She didn't. She turned the monitor toward me, gently, like she was showing me something fragile. And there it was. My name, slowly being replaced by someone else's. Janelle, my sister, listed as the new primary. I remember staring at it for a full 10 seconds before I even blinked. It didn't make sense. My name was on every mortgage, payment, every property tax receipt. I'd even handled the roof repairs last winter. And now I was watching myself be erased, one digital form at a time. My mouth went dry. I asked if it could be a mistake, if maybe it was a clerical error, some crossed wires. But the paralegal just gave me that look, sympathetic but detached, like she'd seen this before. "You might want to speak to whoever filed it," she said. "It's listed under family reallocation, common in estate matters." Except this wasn't an estate issue. No one had died. No one had even discussed changes. And I sure as hell hadn't signed anything. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for my tea to go cold, and for the artificial ficus by the door to start feeling like the only thing rooted in place. I thanked her, numbly, and walked out without the refinancing papers I came in for. Outside, the sun was still bright. People were going about their lives like nothing had happened. But inside my head, something had cracked wide open. It's hard to explain what that kind of betrayal feels like. Not loud, not dramatic, just cold. Like stepping into a room you thought was yours, only to realize the locks have changed. That's what this house was to me. More than walls and a roof. It was where I patched up my first heartbreak on the back porch. Where I watched Dad drink coffee by the window. Always quiet. Always steady. It was the only place I ever felt safe. And now, I felt like a guest in my own life. I drove home in silence that day. Didn't turn on the radio, didn't call anyone. I just let the truth settle in like dust, slow, unwanted, and impossible to ignore. My sister didn't just file a form. She made a move. A quiet, calculated one. And I had to decide, right then, whether I was going to let it happen. Or finally, stand up for something that was mine. And that, I guess, is where everything started to unravel. It was 2 weeks before the lawyer's office. That's when the real crack started. We were all gathered for a family dinner at the house. Our house. The one my parents left behind. The one I'd been keeping afloat with quiet payments and patched up plumbing. It was supposed to be casual. Janelle's idea. She called it just a little something to bring us all together. Said she missed the way things used to be. I should have known then. The house looked warm that night. Golden light spilling from the porch. Music humming, low from the living room speaker. The dining table was dressed like we were expecting company. Cloth napkins, mismatched wine glasses, those old plates with the tiny blue flowers Mom always said were too nice to actually use. Janelle was in full host mode. She wore this bright red dress, hair curled just so, and a smile that was just a little too wide. I brought a bottle of wine and a pie from the bakery down the road. She didn't even look at them. Just kissed my cheek and said, "You're here, finally. Thought you'd skip again." Then she turned back to the roast chicken like I hadn't even walked in. Dinner started fine. Or it played that way. Everyone was polite in that strained, careful way families can be. We passed dishes, complimented the seasoning, laughed too hard at things that weren't really funny. But Janelle, she was performing. She told story after story, each one just sharp, enough to sting without leaving a mark. Remember when Myra tried to cook that holiday turkey and set off the fire alarm? What was that, 2016? She looked around the table like she was delivering stand-up. She cried for 3 hours. We ordered pizza, and she still wouldn't come out of the bathroom. I smiled. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. I said, "Yeah, guess I wasn't cut out for culinary school," and laughed right along with her. Because the truth? That year, I'd been fresh out of a breakup and barely holding it together. I wasn't crying over the turkey, but saying that out loud would have ruined the vibe. She kept going. Little digs dressed up as charm. "You're still in that condo, right?" she asked at one point, like she didn't know. So much space for just one person. I could never live alone. I'd talk to the walls. The others laughed. I didn't. The turning point came just after dessert. Janelle stood, glass of white wine, in hand, and said she wanted to make a toast. "To new beginnings," she said. Her voice got that soft, rehearsed tone she uses when she's trying to sound sincere. To fresh starts, to family, and to building something lasting, together. People raised their glasses. I did too, half-heartedly. Then she added it, the sentence that made everything stop. She looked directly at me and said, "To finally owning something together." And I don't know how to explain it, but the words didn't land like a joke. They landed like a declaration. Like she was claiming something. Like the house was already hers and I was the last one to get the memo. No one said anything. Not right away. They just drank, nodded, smiled like they understood a script I hadn't been given. I laughed too, because crying would have looked pathetic. I excused myself after that, said I had an early morning, thanked her for the meal, and left my pie dish in the sink. I walked out into the cold with my heart thudding louder than my footsteps. I didn't even start the car for a full minute. Just sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide if what I felt was paranoia or the start of a war I hadn't agreed to fight. Turns out it was both. The call came on a Tuesday morning, just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee. I didn't recognize the number, but I picked up anyway. A man's voice, polite but clipped, said, "Hi, this is Derek from Eastwood Bank. We're just confirming that you'll no longer be listed on the property loan ending in 3729. I froze, one hand on the coffee pot. I asked him to repeat it. He did. I asked him who authorized the change. He paused, then said, "The request came in under a joint family authorization. You're listed as relinquishing your responsibility on the loan." My mouth went dry. I told him there had to be a mistake, that I never signed anything. He offered to email me the document. I said yes, gave him my address, and hung up with my heart in my throat. 10 minutes later, the PDF landed in my inbox. My name was there, typed in bold next to a signature I never wrote. A tight, cursive version of my name, eerily close to mine, but not mine. The date matched the week after that family dinner. I stared at it for a long time. My body felt cold, like I'd stepped into a different version of my life without realizing it. I drove straight to the house. No warning, no call. I parked in the driveway like I used to when I still believed it was mine, and let myself in with the key I hadn't given anyone else permission to copy. The living room was quiet. I didn't stop there. I went straight upstairs, into the attic, where I kept the original files, the deed copy, mortgage records, tax receipts. I opened the old filing cabinet and started going through it. That's when I saw it. Papers had been moved. Some of the folders were resealed with new tape. A few documents were missing, others replaced with copies that looked doctored. On one of them, my signature had been cut and pasted. Literally. I could see the faint line around it, like someone had printed it, trimmed it out, and glued it onto another form before scanning it back in. I didn't feel anger at first. I felt something worse. Disbelief. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was deliberate, planned, quiet. She'd taken my name, my trust, and turned them into tools. It wasn't just the theft. It was the way she'd rehearsed it, like it was a role she'd always wanted to play. The responsible sister, the provider, the one who fixed things. And she was willing to steal from me to become her own fiction. I found her in the kitchen later that evening. She was making tea, calm as ever. When she saw me, she didn't flinch, didn't ask why I was there. She just said, "You look tired." I asked her why she would do this. Her eyes didn't soften. Her voice didn't shake. She said, "You've never needed it like I do. You have your books, your quiet little life, your peace." I just stood there, blinking at her. Because how do you explain to someone that peace isn't something I was born with? That it wasn't handed to me? I carved it out of survival, of being overlooked, of stepping back when she needed the spotlight, of saying yes when I should have said no. Every part of my peace was earned. And now, she'd tried to take that too. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at her and realized something had shifted. Something that couldn't be undone. She wasn't sorry. She never would be. And I knew, in that moment, I couldn't afford to be the quiet sister anymore. I didn't go to the police. I didn't scream on social media or start a family group chat war. I called Devin. We hadn't talked in years. He was an old college friend who used to fall asleep in the library with highlighters still uncapped, back when we thought student loans were the hardest thing we'd face. Now he was a real estate attorney, quiet and brilliant in all the ways that mattered. I left him a message, told him it was urgent, and by the next morning, we were sitting across from each other at a cafe with legal pads and espresso shots between us. I laid it all out. The forged signatures, the backdated documents, the loan, modification I'd never approved. He didn't interrupt, just nodded, flipping through every page like he was putting together a puzzle with pieces that didn't want to fit. Then he said something that made my stomach turn. "This isn't just fraud," he said. "It looks like she tampered with the trust, too." I stared at him. "The trust?" He pulled up the scanned copy I'd emailed over and pointed. "Your father's trust was amended in a different font. Look at the spacing here. And here. It's been altered." He tapped the screen again. "And this part? It originally listed you as the sole custodian of the house if he passed while you were still covering the mortgage. Someone added a clause to make it joint. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My hands just sat there on the table, too still. That trust had been drafted when I was 29. I remember Dad showing it to me after Mom's funeral. His voice tired, but steady. "This is just to make sure you're protected," he'd said. "You've done more for this house than anyone." I didn't know back then that I'd spend the next decade defending that protection from the very people it was meant to guard me from. Devin said we had a case. A strong one. So, we got to work. While I gathered every wire transfer, every dated receipt, Devin combed through the original trust with a forensic team. They traced the changes to a single device, Janelle's laptop. Not even hidden well. She hadn't expected to be challenged. Word got around. Of course it did. Our cousin Belinda texted me. "Is it true you're suing your own sister?" I didn't respond. A week later, my aunt left a voicemail, her voice full of guilt and warning. "Myra, honey, Janelle says you're trying to take everything. You should think about what this will do to the family. What this will do to the family." as if I hadn't spent years holding it together with quiet sacrifices no one noticed until they wanted to take them away. People started choosing sides, and they didn't choose mine. Maybe because I wasn't loud about it. Maybe because I didn't beg them to understand. Or maybe because, for them, it was easier to believe I was greedy than to believe Janelle was cruel. I didn't defend myself in phone calls or Facebook comments. I let the paperwork speak. When the court date came, I showed up in a navy blazer and flats that had scuffed at the toes. Devin handled the arguments. I sat silent beside him, hands folded, while the judge flipped through pages that told the real story. Janelle showed up late. Hair done, makeup flawless, like it was a stage and she'd been cast as the misunderstood hero. But the evidence didn't care about appearances. The judge read through everything, the altered files, the fake signatures, the breach of trust. Then, just like that, it was done. The title was restored in my name. Afterward, Janelle didn't speak to me. Not even a glance in the hallway. She just brushed past like we were strangers. Maybe we always were. She thought I'd fold quietly. She forgot that I learned silence from surviving her. Winning the case didn't feel like winning. Not really. It felt like watching a dam crack after years of pressure. Quiet. Inevitable. A little sad. I had the deed back in my name. The trust was restored. Legally, it was mine again. But I couldn't breathe inside those walls anymore. Every corner held a lie. Every room echoed with things left unsaid. So I made the decision. I told Devin I wanted to sell. He looked at me for a long second. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I mean, it's the family house. That's a big move." I said. "So was betrayal." He nodded slowly and said, "Then I'll start the paperwork." And just like that, I let it go. We listed it quietly. No for sale sign, no public announcement, just a few private showings. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Janelle was still staying there off and on, claiming it helped her feel close to Dad? Like she hadn't just tried to erase everything he left behind. I didn't want another scene. I didn't want a dramatic finale with shouting matches or broken plates. I just wanted her gone. The morning the movers arrived, I stayed in my car, parked a little down the block. They pulled up right on time, a plain white truck with 2 workers, who moved like they'd done this 1,000 times. Janelle must have been in the kitchen because she came flying out the front door in slippers, hair tied up, still holding a half-drunk cup of coffee. She looked confused at first. Then she saw the clipboard in the mover's hand and the box labels marked with dates. That's when her face changed. She stormed out to the curb, spotted me sitting behind the wheel, and walked straight over, eyes wide, like she couldn't believe I'd actually gone through with it. "You're selling it?" she asked, voice sharp, but shaking. Without even telling me? I stepped out of the car and closed the door gently behind me. "It's done," I said. "The paperwork went through yesterday." She blinked hard, like she was waiting for the punchline. "You're destroying memories." I looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the version I used to build excuses around. Not the sister I kept trying to rescue. Just her, standing there in the daylight, hands trembling over a house she tried to steal. "No," I said. "You destroyed trust. The house is just bricks." She opened her mouth like she had more to say, maybe some last-minute appeal to guilt or nostalgia. But nothing came out. Just silence. And in that silence, I felt something settle in me, not revenge, not even relief. Just stillness. I walked past her toward the front porch, nodded to the movers, and pointed out the few things that needed to stay behind for staging. I didn't ask if she needed time to pack. I didn't ask where she was going. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying her weight anymore. The house wasn't mine to fix. Not anymore. A few days after the sale closed, I went back to the house one last time. Not to reminisce, not to mourn, just to make sure everything was done, that it was really over. It was early morning. The air had that cool, hushed feeling like the world hadn't fully woken up yet. I brought no keys, just the new owner's contact info in my phone and a folder under my arm. The door was already unlocked. Someone from the agency had left it open for staging work. But when I stepped inside, it was quiet in a way I hadn't felt before. Not the kind of quiet that waits for something. The kind that lingers after everything has already gone. The walls were bare now. No more pictures. No laughter bleeding in from the kitchen. No scent of cinnamon or old carpet or lemon cleaner. Just light spilling in through the windows and dust catching in the air like snowflakes. I didn't walk through every room. I didn't need to. I knew every scratch in the floorboards, every creak on the staircase, every spot on the wall where tape had peeled off paint years ago. I went straight to the garage. I don't know why. Maybe because it had always been Dad's space. Somewhere he could tinker, disappear, think. Something told me to check the back corner. Behind the shelving unit, no one ever moved. I had no reason to, not really. Just a feeling. And there it was, a folded piece of yellowed paper, wedged between two beams, curling at the edges. My name on the front in my dad's handwriting. Just that. Nothing else. I opened it with both hands, careful not to tear it. The ink had faded a little, but I could still read every word. Myra, keep fighting even when they don't see you. I do. That was it. One sentence. No date. No explanation. But I didn't need one. I felt it. Like he'd known. Like maybe some part of him had always known the burden I would carry. And maybe he wanted me to know I hadn't imagined it. That someone had seen me. That I hadn't been invisible to everyone, after all. I stood there for a minute, paper in one hand, breathing in air that smelled like sawdust and old nails. Then I reached into my folder and pulled out the final deed. My name, printed clear across the top. Not as a guest, not as a secondary. As the owner. I placed it next to the note on the old workbench. No ceremony, no announcement. Just a quiet offering to the past that had built me and tried to break me. Then I walked out. I didn't turn back. I didn't touch the door frame or run my fingers along the walls. I just stepped outside, felt the sun hit my skin, and kept walking. Justice didn't come with applause. It came in silence. Clean. Final. It's quiet in my new place. Not the kind of quiet that presses on your chest, the kind that lets you breathe. It's smaller than the house, but it fits me. Nothing echoes. Nothing lingers too long. Just me. The hum of the fridge. The occasional creak of the floor when I walk barefoot to make tea. The first thing I unpacked was a candle. Lavender and sage. I lit it that night. Let it burn slow on the kitchen counter while I opened one small box at a time. I didn't rush. I wasn't trying to rebuild anything. Just settle. I found an old photo of me as a kid. I must have been 7, maybe 8. Hair in pigtails, front tooth missing, holding a ribbon from some school contest I barely remember. I looked happy in that picture. Not loud, not beaming, just quietly proud. I put it in a frame and set it on the shelf above the table. Just one photo. Just me. It felt right. Later that week, an old friend came by. Amina. We hadn't seen each other in a while, but some people don't fade no matter how long the silence. She brought soup and a loaf of bread wrapped in a dish towel like her grandmother used to do. We didn't talk much at first. We just sat at the table, steam rising between us, eating slowly like people who weren't in a hurry to fill the space. At one point, she looked around and said, It's peaceful here. And I smiled because, yeah, it is. We talked about little things, books, recipes, a new job she was starting. She didn't ask about Janelle, didn't mention the house, and I didn't bring it up. That part of the story had closed. After she left, I cleaned up, made a cup of tea, and sat by the window. The candle had burned low by then, just a soft glow in the corner. I looked at that little framed photo again and thought, maybe that girl would be proud of me. Not because I fought back, but because I finally chose myself. Sometimes family isn't who raised you, it's who holds you up when the roof caves in. Have you ever had to let go of someone to find peace? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story made you feel seen, subscribe for more.